live on that. And we are live on YouTube. And here we go. Start the countdown.
Good to hear. Let's hope your execution matches your enthusiasm. I've got your feeling if you're looking to keep busy. Here are the details.
And greetings. Welcome to Soul Voices. I am Griffin Gaming RPG, and we're back for another fun-filled Saturday afternoon. And we have a very special co-host here today. Our good friend Seggellion is back.
Hey.
How are you, man?
I'm good, man. Thanks so much for having me here.
Good.
So cool to be here.
Listen, you know what? I'm so used to you when you have those headphones on that you're decked out in that really slick white jacket of yours. So this red and white thing is throwing me off. You got to get some slick red ones to go along with that top now, because you're always matching when I see you.
It's true, but I'm wearing a Stanton 7 shirt because we're in the middle of the Stanton 7 races right now.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to, do what I can.
Yeah.
So shout out Stanton 7.
Why don't you plug that a little bit real quick? Give some folks maybe who don't know anything about Stanton 7, give them some background on it.
Sure, yeah. Stanton 7 is a race that they do in the Stanton system. I believe this is the third year they've been doing it now, at least the second. I remember last year's. But it's kind of like a variety race where different vehicles, different planets, similar of sorts to the Daymar Rally. But they vary it up a little bit more. And there's different types of races, circuit races as opposed to the distance-based races. It extends over months instead of it just being one day like the Daymar Rally. So it's a pretty cool event. There's 2 more races remaining in the season. They're Saturday at about 2 p.m. ish Pacific Standard Time. So next week you'll be able to see the next race, the Stanton 7. The week after that will be the finals.
Okay. Now, was last year the first year they did Stanton 7?
My memory's not so great.
I feel like that was the first time they did it was a year ago.
Okay.
Because it started out with Daymar first, right? And then Stanton 7 kind of sprung from that, right? Or was
but Daymar is really old now.
Yeah, old now. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, listen, if you guys are into the whole racing and competitive edge aspects, the folks over at Atmo and Seggellion and a lot of other folks that are working on that. So we would definitely tell you to dig into it. Where can they find out about it again? Where can they go to get details?
Definitely go to atmo.gg. That is the center source of truth for all the Atmo-related esports events. So atmo.gg is their main website.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And we're really excited. We got a new website we're working on right now that we hope to have soon. running for everybody. So big changes for Atmo.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is so cool. Guys, I don't know what's going on, but YouTube doesn't seem to be running us for some reason. All I see is waiting for Soul Citizens, and I don't know what that means. What does that mean? Does anybody else?
Waiting.
Yeah, is anybody
Coming
else
soon.
getting that? Because or is it? Maybe it is going through. Oh, there it is. It is going through. Okay, I just had to click on the screen again. Okay, well, listen. Again, welcome you guys. As you guys know, Soul Voices is our one-on-one conversation with you folks from the community, where you get to come in and talk with me, and you get to come in and talk to Seggellion. You don't have to share us with anybody, but Seggellion's here as our guest co-host today. He's not just a guest, but he's actually co-hosting, and we're going to share with you some things that we find in the community on Spectrum, on Reddit, also in the gaming industry. So don't be shy. As you guys know, the link is in chat. If you want to, just click on that little link down there, and you can come in and talk with Seggellion tonight and give us your thoughts on the topics that we're talking about. Not necessarily the whole world of Star Citizen, but at least the things we're talking about today. So we're going to go ahead and get things started here. Are you ready, Seggellion?
I'm ready, Griff. Let's do it.
Cool. We're gonna break Seggellion in, y'all. He's gonna be a total.
Break him in.
He's gonna be a total Soul Citizen pro when we get into this one here. Okay. All right. So Seggellion, one of the ones that caught my eye this week is I was on Spectrum, and somebody titled the lead on this as features during quantum travel. Like, and I'm gonna read what they say. It's a very short one, but the person who posted this was KingGay84, and it says, what features do you all hope they will work on that may not be on the progress view for things that you can do during quantum travel? And Seggellion, you've been in the game for a while like I have. You know, quantum travel times have changed from, if you remember back in the day when you used to leave Port Olisar to get to Hurston, it was almost like 12 minutes in real time. But CIG has said that there will be things that you as players will be able to do while traveling. You're not just, the only person who's doing something is the pilot, but there will be things to do. What are some things you would like your crew or your people to be doing, or what would you like to see them build in to the game that kind of gives people purpose during that 7-minute, 8-minute, 14-minute travel time in the game?
And one thing I remember, but I don't remember who said it or when they said it, was implementation of server blades will introduce us being able to trade in travel. And man, I can't. It was whenever that was said, like I just nonstop think about that, because like I want that so desperately, and especially when they do physicalized cargo. Technically, we could just not have any loading time if we have 5 or 6 C2s. There's always one in a state of filling, and then you could be doing your trades remotely through a server blade.
Wow.
So that would be pretty sweet. And I don't think that's a meta or unfair game advantage. I believe that is the next progression of cargo trading, just based off of the feedback I get from CIG in my own gameplay, which doesn't seem to make sense for many people. But I just believe that this is the future of cargo, and I don't see any evidence to suggest otherwise, Griff.
I like that. I like that idea. I've always looked at quantum time as being, I don't know, from watching military stuff and whatnot, like on submarines or people are on their way to go do something. I always see that time period as like the time when you're getting ready, the time when maybe that pilot who's up there looks up and sees that the coolers are running at 33%. We need to, get ready to replace those. Maybe there's damage been done to the ship at some point that actually can be fixed from the interior of a ship. Obviously, navigation things, scanning that's taking place. There's a lot of like little things that I would hope that different people on the ship have a certain role to play while we're on our way to wherever we're going. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't have any problem with downtime either. Everybody's sitting down in the pool room playing pool. You know what I mean? I can't wait till the pool table is running. I can't wait till the monitors are running on the ship where I can watch a battle that's going on someplace else in another system, or whatever it is the CIG pipes through the system. Briefings, mission briefing, things that are happening in the verse that could come up that you could be playing catch up on. You know what I mean? Maybe it's a news report that's talking about something that's happening with Ninetales or something like that. But I want some functionality of the ship that gives people purpose, where things just aren't, they're cosmetically there, but you can actually do some things. So that's kind of one of the things. We got Pops in space standing by in the old chat queue there. Let's bring Pops in.
How's it going, Pops?
Pops, Pops, you there?
Hey,
There he is. How are you?
yes.
How's it going,
I'm
Pops?
fine, thank you.
Good,
All right,
good,
how's it
good,
going?
good, good. To say hi to Seggellion.
Hey, Seggellion.
Hey, Pops,
I'm
07.
going to try to think of a cheer for you. I don't
A
know.
cheer.
I don't know.
I'll take it.
Something.
Okay.
Okay. So, I was thinking, I know that let's take exploration. I know a lot of people are waiting on exploration. I guess we will I'm trying to think of what we will do in route to different places. I know uh, we could I guess do some mapping and things like that uh along the way. I know there'll be food preparation needed.
Now, let me ask you about the hold on. Now, you just pushed the button with me, right? Because it's Seggellion knows this. I have an 890. Some people have 890s, and there's an actual full size commercial kitchen. And
I love the kitchen in there.
Yeah, I know it's kind of crazy. CIG, that's right, especially you being a cook. I know you appreciate it. So, CIG has shown. Remember when they were talking about the Genesis Starliner, how there would be this whole process of when people want food, that there'd be these machines you could go to and produce and make food. Do you think that they'll actually make a career for? I don't hate to say career, but will there be a role for somebody who literally knows how to go back in those freezers, get certain things, prepare stuff, and those things become buffs in the game for maybe those people who are on the ship? Is that something that you think the CIG could end up doing, or is this going to be all generic food and you just buy it from the store?
No, I think it should be something special. I think it should be because let's say, for example, you have Banu on your ship. You need to know
some specific type of food for them that they like.
Exactly. You need to know that. I mean, I think the Starliner will be. I would think that would be probably the most in-depth area in food preparation because you don't know who you're going to have on that ship. And I'm quite sure there's probably going to be races that we haven't thought of yet that they're probably bringing into lore that will need certain things just to expand on the Starliner. What's the science ship?
Endeavor?
Right, the Endeavor that will have, you'll have plants, maybe they'll expand the animals, there'll be different things that you can do en route with the plants. Making fertilizer, different things, and it's supposed to be a science piece on there where you can
science station, science lab, right? You could do stuff in the science lab, all types of stuff. You're saying basically, right?
All types of things that will immerse us into the game. But I think one of the things that I look at and kind of see, will we have some type of schooling involved in it? That's the part that gets me. I'm very curious on where we learn how to replace different parts of this ship. Different things, different certifications is probably a better thought.
I know that CIG talked about, they're trying to distinguish this whole thing of the game not being like a tier based, like earning points or anything, but they wanted it to be based upon your experiences, and those things build up a certain level of skill, but even more toward reputation. So if I'm on Seggellion Starfarer and he says, Griff, I need you to go down and do some repairs on this, and we don't know what CIG is going to build into it, but maybe the pumps, for example, aren't working optimally, and he doesn't want to take it into a station. Griff, you go down there. I may be a level 3 reputation. It says that when Griff works on this thing, he's able to get it done. We don't know if it's going to be a mini game or whatever it is, but there's something there that because of my past experience, I'm able to get the thing fixed within 7 minutes, where maybe somebody else who is a rookie takes 12 minutes to get it done. You know what I mean? Because I'm familiar with whatever this thing is that needs to be done. I'm hoping they create something that varies itself. And so that, you constantly have to, how it is when you approach certain puzzles in the game, if you're not at a certain level of experience, like lock picking. Some games have had the thing where if you got to do lock picking to a certain point, you start to figure out how it works. And so, but then the next one's a little more complicated than the last one was. I would love to see something like that happen in the game. Seggellion, have you played any games where, I am throwing this to you because I know your love for cooking, But there are games that literally, there are some people that play games and they're like the freaking chef for their org. You know what I mean? Because foods work as buffs, you know, and people may need them for healing or things like that. Do you think that they'll ever get to a point where cooking like literally is, I mean, somebody could really delve into that in this game? Or do you think that the kitchens will just be pretty, not generic, but, you know, pretty straightforward? Because some ships have some pretty elaborate kitchens.
I just want to back up a bit.
Sure.
I don't agree with this whole buff system. I see that in other games. I don't think I've ever played a game where I've had to do that, but I've seen it in other games. Ultima, I always go back to Ultima, man. Ultima is my genetic makeup. So I expect to play Ultima in space, and I think that's what we're going to get, you know, because of Chris Roberts and Origin Systems and that relation. I don't expect buffs. Here's a question. Do you need a buff to want to fill out a role, you know? And let me just add to that one more thing.
Sure.
In the context of an engineer, what's wrong with a more complex mini game instead of having a skill-based system where you have to just develop your own skills through a mini game instead?
I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with it. And when I say buffs, I want to be real careful about that, because I agree with you. I'm thinking, like in 7 Days to Die, for example, there's a thing there where if you drink coffee, you can be out in the cold longer than when you don't drink coffee. I'm looking at real simple stuff like that. I don't want something that's going to give somebody some great advantage, you know, like super steroid kind of thing, but just something that says if I eat before we go into a mission, my stamina will be in a better place than if I decide not to eat. Right. And then my quiver, you know, my stability on holding a rifle isn't that great. Or maybe I can't run as far as I normally would. I don't want to get into too much of like stamina meters and all that stuff. I'm just saying the natural things that would happen with the human body. If I don't eat well, if I don't hydrate, if I don't go to the bathroom, you know, I want those things to be elements that have some level of impact on me, but not to the point where, like you said, if I know I eat a whole bunch of whammers, I'm going to be at 200% health. I don't want that. You know what I mean? I just want it to be enough that if I want to be optimal, I need to do certain things. I like the idea of what you said, Seggellion, about the complexity building, because to me, that's a good way to do it. It also makes people go do stuff so that they can, you know, climb up that knowledge ladder of how to do something, which I think is a great idea.
And that translates to real world as well. It's not like just a number in a video game. There's a series of patterns that have been created that you're running through a simulation, and you're actually exercising parts of your brain that are related to the in-game skill. So maybe within the context of cooking, I don't know how much fidelity they'll have, but to know that a soup comes from a stock, and you know, you reduce that and you add more stuff to it, and that could be stuff that maybe a 19-year-old today doesn't know, you know, because the world's changed. Now we're kind of, there's an opportunity for education through Star Citizen. And I mentioned this in the past, and I really believe we should have more education in Star Citizen.
Yeah, that's a great point. Great point. All right, Pops.
Yeah, I just want to mention one more thing. Now, you remember when we run your Star Fair, and you were teaching us and showing us some of the parts on how to refuel. And that goes exactly to my point, because I don't want to jump on a ship and have to do refueling, because it's your ship. And if I do and I break off the arm, I want a place where we can simulate, you know, the training of that, because I think that's very crucial. And I'm just wondering how, if they can emulate, have some type of training program and to respect to what we did on the Star Fair.
You know, and I get that, Pops, but I think that what you will have is just that. I think that the training is interactive versus something that's an automated training. But just like if you did any other job, somebody would walk over there with you to that panel and explain it and talk to you about it and say, this is the level you want to be at. This is the percentage you want. I think CIG is going to lean more toward wanting player interactions for learning that versus a tutorial or some, you know, you go up to it and this gets, I think it's going to be more, because guess what? Maybe Griff knows this much, but if you talk to Seggellion, who's running a freaking energy company, he may say, yeah, Griff told you this, but if you do this, this is even better. You see what I'm saying? You might even gain more information interacting with someone else who's even got more experience in how to do it and efficiency, right? Than if we just kind of have a, you know, limited kind of tutorial kind of thing or training program. I think, and even if you did do a basic training program, I get it, but I think they still want it to be, let's learn the ins and outs from people who've done it before, just like you would do with
Okay.
a real life
Seggellion
job.
can run a school.
Hey, go over there,
He could
Seggellion.
earn
Segellion's
extra
already
money
he's
on
already
his
running
own.
a school over there, living in space in his starfare. So
But it's true though.
Okay.
Maybe there's so much fidelity to each game mechanic. Each org has to operate as an institution, an educational
yeah,
facility.
I
yeah.
got you.
I mean, not
No
to be
more
funny.
tutorials.
Yeah, not to be funny, but like in test, we have combat training, flight combat training.
Yeah.
And that's not by any that's people training people. You know what I mean? So there's no reason why that same thing couldn't go for mining. You know what I mean? Couldn't go for whatever other career you want to decide to pick. All right, Pops. Thank you, man. We appreciate you.
All right.
All righty. Let's see who we got next. I don't know who popped in next, so I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way up because I'm going to bring J2 in here and have J2 talk to us. J2, how are you?
Yo, yo.
Hey, Segellion's here, man. Say hi to him.
What is up, Seggellion? What is up
How's it going, J2? Nice to see you.
today?
Yeah, man. Give us your thoughts.
Well, I think my thoughts first off on the buff situation. Buffs are they're in every game that I've experienced, and I certainly don't want to go. I don't want Star Citizen going back to a system like we had in Star Wars Galaxies, where you had to get buffed in order to go out. And not only did you have to get buffed, but you had to get like 6 different buffs, 9 different buffs actually, for each one of your stats from a doctor and then from an entertainer. And it was just getting together to go out and run some missions was a chore.
Yeah, took a lot.
But there are things there are plenty other games, like you said, like 7 Days to Die, Ark, other things where foods offer little buffs. And even if you see it now, we see it now in Star Citizen, where if you look at the descriptions of some of the foods and some of the items, they do offer small buffs and things like that. Maybe something that will, steady your aim or let you sprint for a little bit longer, small things like that. And I think that system, I mean, if we go through the other evidence we have of things like farming in particular, the Endeavor's real big on farming. That's a feature that's been pushed pretty hard. What are we going to do with those things that we farm if not turn them into medicines or foods?
Yes.
Other things that will provide even more advanced buffs than the ones we get from the raw stuff that we currently have now, or a chocolate bar. Something prepared by a player. Maybe that chocolate bar will let you sprint for a minute, 30 seconds to a minute longer. That meal prepared by another player will let you go for 3 minutes. Right. That kind of thing.
You're right, because there are some things in the game. For example, I think is it Fizz? One of them will dehydrate you, one of them hydrate you. You know what I mean? Like the smoothies.
Yes.
It's a little bit better, So and there may be some reasons. For example, like if you go to New Babbage, right, the Apple store, there's much more of the healthier kind of eating there, right? The fruit stands, things of that nature, the health food stores, where maybe if you're in Pyro, you don't have that luxury. All they got is a freaking hot dog, you know what I mean, and a slice of pizza, pardon the expression, Seggellion. But, you may not be able to get the high-end nutrition there. And so you're forced, because you have to eat something, right? You can't just not eat. And it does give you some benefit, but maybe the benefits aren't, as you mentioned, as long-term. You know what I mean? That's another way of looking at it.
I know, like you mentioned, the Fizz, the cola in particular. I haven't looked at the others, but I know the cola. It will refill your thirst meter, but it will then also go down faster. After that. Right.
Exactly.
It offers some other benefit, I think, too. It's like caffeination. And that's another thing with the Star Citizen is when you read the descriptions, it'll tell you, it's caffeinated for this amount, but then you've got to go look at some other documentation to find out exactly what caffeination does to your player. So it's like there's like layers to it that you got to go figure out, and I feel like they should be more clear on that sort of
Narrow
stuff.
down.
But those type of buffs, the types of things that aren't necessary but will give you a small advantage are the things that I'm expecting and hoping for from Star Citizen.
Okay, that's good stuff. Thank you, man. Good
I
stuff,
like that you
JJ.
said Star Wars Galaxies. Like everything, I think in Star Citizen, I just want Star Wars Galaxies to an order of magnitude more fidelity. It's
Yeah.
like you get everything you need from Star Wars Galaxies. You
Yeah,
just
I
need more
loved
depth.
Galaxies. I loved
Yeah.
Galaxies.
They
Okay.
did everything right.
They did.
20 years ago.
I know. Then they did everything wrong, right? Okay, fist to face. Hey, Fist, say hi to Seggellion.
Hey, how are you, Seggellion?
Hey,
Love the
Fist
pizza. I'm going to contribute the point of the fact that you have ruined my diet every time I've watched you. So,
Yo, man, wait
yeah.
till you try my pizza. Your diet's done.
I know. That's the thing that's
I know,
aggravating. We
I
watch him
know.
make them, and then we can't never eat them, which sucks. You
You
know.
know what? I'm not going to derail this conversation too much, but with the way he caramelizes his cheese, I mean, it's just like, oh my God.
How do you know about that, though? You haven't seen it, man. How do you know? So good.
I have seen it when we have the oven cam. Come
Yeah,
on,
watch the
now.
oven cam. Yeah, that's
I
right.
miss that stuff so much.
Come
I need
on,
that back.
come on.
I was
Yeah.
giving a lecture last week in the restaurant about the caramelized cheese to this unwitting, I don't know, 50-year-old woman who wanted nothing to do with this conversation. But man, I could talk about caramelized cheese for hours.
Oh my goodness.
We're gonna
Hey, all
order
right,
one
so-
from him. Go ahead.
Right.
Yeah, so,
Right.
okay, so,
So,
let's
okay,
do
so-
this quick, features during quantum, ideas that you
Right.
think that CIG can do.
Okay. So I'm gonna go in a different direction. Everybody's been
Okay.
talking about food buffs and stuff like that. I'm going to, and I'm gonna have to contribute this idea to Unique. And Unique said this to me back a while ago. And this might be far-fetched. And I remember I was playing Icarus, and he said to me, do you know that the way Star Citizen is designed in its architecture of his game, that you could actually run Icarus while being in Star Citizen?
Okay.
Now, I sat back and thought to myself, I said, And he said that to me, and I was like, wow. And I thought, I was like, wow, so you could actually run another game within Star Citizen. So I'm thinking like myself, well, how would you do that? Or when would you do that? And you just posted the question here. So what if it was possible to be able to run a game? Let's say you're in a long travel, you've done all of your check marks and done all of that stuff. If you can run a game within the game.
Totally. You definitely could, especially with the building blocks interface, I bet. Because you render in another interface, you could stream that, the functionality of the game itself through the server. But I would imagine, me and Ariana's in chat, or anybody else, game developers, I'd imagine that CryEngine would do all the heavy lifting there. You would still be running another instance, I think, of CryEngine, but it would be running Pac-Man. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Only thing is
Right.
about it, but would you run into any issues? And I hate to say it this way, y'all, but I'm thinking on the legal side. Would you run into any issues with that on the legality side?
You're right. Now, the thing is, what I'm trying to say, I should have said this better, is that not necessarily a third party's game.
Okay,
but I'm talking about a game that Star Citizen.
I got you. Okay,
you got
okay.
theaters of war.
Mm-hmm.
So you got theaters of war, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you want to jump in and say, let me jump into a match. Let me jump into theaters of war. Let me do a little match real quick, death match or something like that, right?
Right.
Something like that. Arena Commander, whatever.
Now they do have this. Now, just so you'll know, that is going to be in the game. It'll be, remember in the Apple Store? I always say the Apple Store, but Frontline.
I love that you say that, by the way. They should definitely have an Apple Store where they sell different variations of apples throughout the verse. Just welcome to the Apple Store.
Okay. So down in, is it Frontline, whatever the store is, in New Babbage. When you go downstairs and you go on the first level toward the back, there's the sim pods. We used to have those back in the day in our hangar. And what you would do is that's what it was designed for. It was a training pod. You got in it, and that's where you used to do Arena Commander, believe it or not. They took the pods out of the hangar, and then later on they made, Arena Commander its own, like, when you load in on the load-in screen, on the menu screen. But those pods they're there because you'll be able to buy them, put them in your place, and you will be able to do, now, I don't know if they're going to do them in ships. I know they talked about putting them in, you could buy and put in a hangar. If you could put it in your ship, that'd be amazing. But it will be like your own simulator that you can get inside of and do a game. Now, whether or not, to your point, how like on the 600 downstairs in the lounge, you got that monitor there, whether or not they'll ever incorporate it so that you could do like a video game of some type sitting there in those chairs, that would be kind of cool. Don't know if they'll do it. It would be cool. I like your idea of being able to do something like that.
I think they'll have to.
Yeah.
Like they got the arcade machine in the 890. They're going to have to make that work. I really don't see them doing Arena Commander in that arcade machine.
Yeah.
Like to virtualize Star Citizen
Yeah.
in itself doesn't
Yeah.
seem optimal, but you could instantiate it, which is what those sim pods did. They just
True.
ran a different instance of the game, but I don't think that's the right solution.
Mhm.
I think what they should do is kind of build a template for these pixel-based two-dimensional games.
Well,
like
aren't they going to do that with the arcade machines? They're going to do
that's
some
what
of the
I'm saying with
bars,
the
right?
arcade machines, but
Mhm.
you'd still have to build another layer. I don't know if you would do that within CryEngine or if you'd then stream from a different gaming engine like Unity. There's something lighter weight, and that could run within CryEngine, maybe.
Interesting. Interesting. That's an interesting idea, Fist. I hadn't heard that one from Unique. That's we'll have to give him some credit for coming up with an interesting idea. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, Fist.
Gotta give credit with credit's due. Thank you.
Thank you, man. All right.
Thank you.
That was an interesting idea. Let's bring DK in, and then we're going to jump into our next one here. DK, you there?
Yes, I am.
How are you, man?
Seggellion, what's going on?
Good day, DK.
Oh man, so Griff, you said Starliner, so you don't have to come back.
Okay. Now let me be specific here, DK, because they said features that have not been listed. Yeah, that have not been listed of things that you'll be able to do while you're in Quantum. So fire away.
Right. So so Fish just talked about games, and you talked about the game pods. In an earlier concept, when they were drawing out the floor plan for the Starliner, the game pods were part of the blueprint. So I do believe that the game pods are going to be able to be used on the Starliner, right? So there was going to be options for alternative activities while you are in Quantum, and considering that some of these ships are going to be long travel ships like the Starliner, perhaps like the 890, they're going to be expecting to be flying for long periods of time. It's going to have some kind of entertainment on top of that. So the sim pods would be one part of it. We saw the chess table in the MSR, as just a party game for a couple people to play for themselves. We talked about, I'm not going to go into the Mixmaster on the Starliner, but there might be a job for somebody to actually be a bartender.
Well, we know that's going to be definite. That's a definite.
Let's see. Medical sciences. Somebody's going to need to perhaps have a medical team on board. We talked about that, I think, when we talked about the Starliner.
What would they be
before.
doing? What would they be doing though? What do you see the feature being that someone has something that they're actually accomplishing while you're spending those 4 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes traveling?
Well, let's say if it's let's say if they're gameplay wise, there's always a chance for what we would call it in flight simulation. It would be a some kind an error. Something would pop up during that time infrequently. So it might be a random NPC got sick. Then somebody on board is going to have to take care of them and monitor them and make sure that they're okay and get safely to their location. It would be just a random thing that would pop up.
Okay,
you never knew what it was going to pop up, but you had to have somebody on board prepared. Yeah.
Let me play devil's advocate to that. Do you think that CIG should add? And I know some people are going to flip when I say this. All right, so you all screw your heads on now.
Yeah.
Do you think CIG should add time? We have time in relation to cargo loading, time in relation to getting your ships back. If you come in jacked up because you got really hurt, should CIG add time to your healing? Should a person who's barely wounded, barely bleeding, and a person who's got a fractured back, fractured arm, and something else that they got to go on a level type 1 bed, they're almost dead, should they both get back to health at the same amount of time? Or should there be, and I'm saying this because if you come back from a mission, we've drugged some people onto the ship, we're taking them to the med bay in the Carrack. I mean, should they just pop up out of the bed? Or should it take, you got to lay in that bed for 5 minutes because you are really jacked up compared to the guy who just has a flesh wound, who we can let that scanner go over him or her and they can get up and pop up.
Man, people are gonna hate me on this one too, because I think a little bit of time is okay. It doesn't have to be drastic, but a little bit of time, on a med bed. If you get, if you break an arm, if you smash your skull in, and somebody is able to save you, it's not going to be the same kind of healing as it would be if you scratched your kneecap. That's going to be different. So I would say the severity of the injury, if you're, say, going into a cutty red, where you're just getting healed momentarily, and just kind of cleaning up, like you said, a flesh wound or something like that, as opposed to being carried to a emergency medical center because it's a deep trauma. You might have to sit there for 5 minutes and wait for your body to heal.
Well,
I don't think that's out of the scope of things, but not being overly not harmful. I'm trying to think of the word, but just taking it too far. I don't think that. Yeah.
Okay, Seggellion, let me ask you a question. You know how, like, when you get a crime stat and you go to the computer thing with the key card, and you just can't do it and walk away. You know what I mean? You can, but usually that key card at some point will freeze up, and you got to hit the button again and keep it going. Could a mechanic like that be something that gets factored in, so that I'm looking at maybe now Rihanna said at least there'll be a nurse there to look after you. I mean, does this give the medical people something to do now? You know what I'm saying? If DK's laying in that bed and I've got to, because you guys know how the medical bed works, like I'm in the advanced stage. It's like that automated thing. And then there's that thing where you can go in and specifically say, do this, 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 and this to bring somebody back. But do you want it so automated that that's all you have to do and you can walk away? Or should there be that medical person who, to give them something to do while you're sitting there getting healed up, they have to maybe hit that button again, or they've got to tweak something, or is it getting too complicated at that point? I'm trying to find roles for these people.
It's got to be complicated. It shouldn't be taboo to tell a gamer to wait, because like there's anxiety around that. We don't want to incur more time. But the reality is like the time could be one element, fidelity. It could be that, and then there could be 4 other activities that spawn up from that wait time. So the person's still experiencing the wait time, but there's other activities that are there because the wait time is almost like a balancing feature. It's like you have severe injuries, so you have to have this wait time. But within there, the medical guy could be altering the chemicals or whatever, and I don't know, there could be an experience that the down person is feeling. So I don't really think there's necessarily a bad way about it. But I haven't done a lot of the crime stat thing. The key card thing, I don't think I've done that since like 3.2 since it first came out.
I think I've only done it once.
A long time ago, yeah. But I would see that from the hacking mechanic, right? I think eventually the hacking mechanic will extend from that.
Okay. Cool stuff.
And just to throw in one last part, when I was talking about failures, that's what I meant to say, the word failures. Random engineering failures. Things get worn out. So somebody's, those things can be just random pop up. Go fix this. Go fix that. That can easily eat up about 5 minutes of your time, 10 minutes of your time. So that runs into repair gameplay. Hacking gameplay. This is just a number of things that could be done, no matter what ship you're on. That could eat up some of that time, and it doesn't feel like it's wasted. Next thing you know, you're at your locations. Like, well, I just got done fixing the quantum drive, and or the thrusters or whatever.
Do you remember back in the day when the quantum drives would overheat? Do you guys remember that?
No, I don't. I won't think I was here for that.
There was
that long ago?
It was that long ago. There was a time back in the day where if you didn't have the right quantum drive, it would shut down on you. Does anybody in chat remember that? This was back in the day. Your quantum drives would literally shut down. You'd have to wait for it to like almost cool down. Some people said, you used to have to wait for it to cool down before you could fire it up again. That's if you didn't have the right type of quantum drive and the right coolers in for it. We've had like a lot of things come in and out of the game, some cool ideas and any things that they're working on, they're going to bring back. But I'm just thinking about what you're saying. Sometimes we have that imbalance thing that'll kick in, some things will happen, but to have it's one thing for the wear, right? It tells you your coolers are at 30%, you know that pretty soon I got to change them. But then, as you mentioned, there's failure where there's no indication that anything's wrong and something just goes on you, then maybe you actually have to come out of quantum to fix it, because you can't fix it while you're in quantum, right? There's a whole lot of dynamics that could come out of that. So that's good stuff. Thanks, DK. That's good stuff.
Yeah, no problem.
All right.
Absolutely.
Listen, I got J2 coming back. We're going to make this real quick with him because I want to get to the next question because we're already running behind. J2, was there something else you want to toss in?
Actually, honestly, I feel like you guys covered a lot of it.
Okay.
I think most of what's going to happen in quantum is I think a lot of it's going to be covered with engineering.
That's a big area. Yep.
even right now, I have like a checklist, like a pre-flight checklist before I even take off of my ships. When I'm changing MFDs, I'm setting weapons groups, I'm doing this and that, and all that sort of stuff can be handled in Quantum. You know, if and I do when I'm in a rush. If I just want to get out of someplace, I fly out, get to a distance where I can jump, I jump, and then I, you know, stop and set up my MFDs and do whatever else it is I got to do. And yeah, all that can be handled in Quantum. When they expand the engineering and resource management, all that stuff's going to be in there. You're going to be getting out of your seat. You're going to be double checking your systems, repairing any damage you might have. Maybe you're swapping out the subcomponents on one of your components to get something perform better. You know, there's a whole bunch of stuff right in that area. It's also, you know, just like you guys were just talking about, the medical stuff. You know, if you're down doing a bunker mission or something like that, you get banged up, you know, stop the bleeding, crawl back to your cockpit, take off, get out of there. When you're relatively safe in Quantum, then you get back out of your cockpit and you know, stumble back to your med bay and patch yourself up as best you can.
That's good stuff. Yeah, that's good. And I agree with you 100% about the engineering aspects. That's definitely the time, you know, to take advantage of, you know, that dead time, that travel time. That's a great time to take advantage of it. Yeah.
You know, there are also, I think we're going to start seeing it now in 318. Well, the management of cargo. You know, maybe if you're in a rush, you know, picking up the cargo, you just throw it in there. But you know, you've got some stuff that's going to one place and some stuff that's going to another place. And you want to kind of rearrange your stuff in your cargo bay a little bit. If you got the room to do it, you know. You know, that's something you can tackle right there.
Okay. Good stuff.
Oh my God, there was something else I was just thinking about and completely lost it. But oh well.
All right. Well, that's good stuff. Thank you, man. All right, J2 gave us some good things. All right, let's move on to our next one. I didn't think that was going to go that long. We kind of covered that all over the place here. All right, let's go to question number 2. Now, this one I got to read. It's a little bit lengthy here, but why does the male character model have way more clothing than the female? By WonderSprite. Okay, so they say, okay, so I want to start off by saying I'm aware that it can be hard to make every piece of clothing for male, female models, as they are separate models. However, it just really sucks when I see some really cool clothing. However, when I go to buy it, it does not fit the female character model. Now, I play as a female because I like to play as the gender I am, and I don't like playing the male model. But how come every time we get a cool new piece of clothing, the ODOC jacket, for example, it almost always is male exclusive? I know this isn't some malicious thing on CIG's part, obviously, but I wish that the female character model got some more love, as the male characters get such a huge backlog of cool clothing. And on top of the exclusive new clothing, maybe I'm just being dramatic, but it feels very unfair. And even though it's a small thing altogether, I'd really like to see the options expanded to female characters. And then they put a little comment in and said, if you need proof of what I'm saying, talking about, just go to any shopping game and just scroll through the female character and you'll see what I mean. Okay, so let's go there, Seggellion. Now, let me preface this, Seggellion. If you go shopping in a store, guess who has the biggest section of clothes in real world?
I would guess it is the woman model.
Exactly.
The female model.
Women have 3 to 5 times way more options of clothing in a store than in game. But when we go to a video game, or at least in the case of Star Citizen, it's almost flipped around the other way. There's like 3 to 5 times more stuff for the guys and less for the ladies. So any thoughts on that?
I think that this has been an outstanding issue with CIG ever since. Remember when they brought in the female model?
Yes.
For the very first time, dude, that was a huge deal. I remember looking down and like seeing my chest, and I'm like, "Whoa, that's weird." You know, like having played as a male model for years, and then all of a sudden it switches on me. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And then we've had this narrative ever since then on equality with clothing. You know, it's real unfortunate that this is, you know, we have to have equality in today's day and age. There's no substitute around that. There's no excuses. So what do we say? We prioritize equality over other features. I think that's a fair thing to say. You know, like if all of a sudden we stop doing armors and new clothing and just play catch up, maybe for 6 months, I think that's a very fair thing to do, and that may be the right solution. But I do, it's unfortunate the way the situation is, and I'm sure there's no, secret plans behind it. You know, it's
Right.
just, this is game development. It's an alpha. All of these things have already been said 1,000 times.
Yeah.
Sorry, you know.
Okay. No, it's a good point. Let's see what some other folks have got to say. We got Pops in space. See if Pops got some thoughts on this. Pops, I know you, like me, you often play as a female character. You know that I've done that plenty of times. So give us your thoughts.
Yeah, I started playing a female character. Me and my son and a few other MMOs back. You know, after I try to model it after the love of my life, and I just got into that habit. And when I, came into to Star Citizen, you know, it's true. The clothes are lacking. They don't fit exactly right. There's not the, the flowiness to the clothes that you would want. But I don't think it's a conspiracy against the female.
How do you feel? But how do you feel about it as a player, though? Because you said you kind of have a purpose behind why you do it. Do you get frustrated? You go like, "Oh, dang, man, it doesn't fit my thing." Because sometimes they throw that generic jacket on you. You know what I mean? That one jacket that they, when they don't have it, you get that generic jacket.
It is. It's. I mean, because we talked about this, the ponytail, thing, and the hair. And I mean, I think. Maybe it's just my preference to the ladies. I just think they need that extra special care.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, let me ask you this, Pops. Okay, Zombie Pig says something like, it probably may expand your player base, right? If there's an actual awareness. Let me ask you guys a question. Do you think that even though I don't believe it's from a malicious place, like Seggellion said, I don't think there's any conspiracy or anything, but do you think that it does come from an industry that is pretty much male dominated? Because people gravitate toward the things that are familiar to them. Do you think that that's the reason why, like, as an African-American player, right? I'll go in and say, dude, ain't none of these hairstyles for an African-American, but that's because the bulk of the people who are making the game are not African-American. I don't think that they're being mean and saying, we're not making no afros. I think they make what's familiar to them first. So to Seggellion's point, he mentions about almost being more proactive about it. In other words, taking an extra step, because if we just kind of do the default, then it just kind of goes to the common, but being aware of the fact that not only for the business standpoint of saying, hey man, if we put some more female stuff in here, we'll get some more women. But I think that anybody always has to be more aware of other folks. You know what I mean? Because we all naturally gravitate. If it was an all black developer team, I can tell y'all, all y'all would be black. Okay, I can tell you that now. Okay, I'd have to remember that Segellion's playing, and so yeah, dude, we got to put some white characters in. I mean, because we're going to default to what's natural to us. So I don't think it's malicious. But I do think, like Seggellion said, it's been a little while now, because what the female model was first talked about back in 2015, Seggellion, something like that, and it's like
long time ago.
Yeah, 8 years later, 7 years later. So especially now, like when new stuff comes out, I get the old stuff, but when new stuff comes out, to me, it should be both. I shouldn't see no stuff that's just for the women, and then just for the guys, and the women don't have, at least now, not at this point, because the female models in. And I know it takes work to do it. So Pops, you gonna keep playing as the female, even though they ain't got no clothes out there for you?
I play as both, and I think one of my underlying purposes for playing a female is to, you have to kind of stretch yourself. You have to go beyond black and white, and it really helps, and it gets what it does for me, and what I hope it does for other people. It puts that trigger on our mind. The more we see that rainbow out there, the more I'd hate to use the word normal, because we shouldn't have to say that. Because it should be just regular. It should be just,
well, that's what the world is, right? That is what the world is, right? So it's just, all you're doing is just reflecting the world that's around us. Personally, Seggellion, what I always tell these guys, I'm tired of looking at dudes all the time. That's why I made a female character. I'm tired of being in a world with nothing but men running around. I like the balance. Now, like you mentioned Pops, and Pops, thank you for saying I'm going to get the next person in, but thank you for giving us your thoughts on that. Now, just for Seggellion, I started when I was playing in Eve. I started playing. Actually, I did this in Galaxies too, but I started really doing it in Eve. I played a brother and sister team. I always had two characters. They were brother and sister that owned a mining company, and I've always carried that over. And the female character was always the names. I have two daughters. my female characters always had their middle names as the name of that character. So Pops talked about the love of his life. For me, I always name the characters after my 2 daughters. You know what I mean? People have their own different reasons for why they may do it. I have been frustrated with the fact that the clothing is not as stylish as it was. Because I'm one of those jokers. I'm a clothes whore. I can tell you that now.
Same.
I go to the freaking stores and I can spend an hour and a half shopping for clothes. Forget putting guns on the ship, dude. I want to look cool in the world. That's what I'm trying to look cool in the world. Let's bring Fist in and see what Fist has got to say. Fist, you there?
Hey. Alrighty.
Fist, now come on, you've been here long enough. You know I ain't gonna wait on you. Go on and jump in. You know I ain't waiting on nothing. Jump on in.
I'm sorry. I gotta mute your
I
stream.
forgot. You always got to cut the other thing off. I forgot. Okay, go ahead.
I gotta mute the streams because it's like on that delay. So I apologize.
That's
I
okay.
don't mean to have this anything like that.
Fist always goes,
It's
hey,
awkward.
and then I have like this dead space, and I'm like, dude, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
But anyway, so I play as a female character as well.
Okay.
Same as Pops. And, the same reason, I play for the because it's reflective of my love of my life, but also I also play it for the reasons that whenever I kill a person, I let them know, hey, listen, you just got killed by a girl.
Okay. There you go.
Anyway,
mess with the heads a little bit.
Yeah, mess with their heads a little bit. Because like when I remember when I first came in, the guy was coming in, ran up to me, he was like, hey, he started talking to me. Then I talked, he was like, oh, whoa, this is a female character with a deep voice.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I do agree that yes, they are lacking in the female department. Because I will say this, from playing other games, I've come from Asian MMOs.
Oh yeah.
And and to your point, Griff, you are correct. They didn't do African American characters too much over there because it was what was familiar to them, and I understood that. Wasn't too mad about it, but excuse me. They did, when I look at from the fashion point of view, I mean, I'll tell you, it is the opposite.
Right.
It is totally the opposite. I mean, female characters look amazing versus male characters. And I used to look at that as just be like, wow, male characters would not get any love. So I can understand, that equality especially in a game like this, where besides going out, being armored up, and doing, combat missions, where, maybe you're on the 890 jump and maybe, or better yet, not necessarily that, but maybe you have to, like they said, that mechanic in the game where you have to be presentable to an NPC, you have to, dress a certain type and have a certain attire, or else you can't get that mission. You can't approach that NPC with, rags on or whatever. You've got to put on, the nice suit or whatever, I don't know, dress or whatever it is, for that character.
Yeah.
So to me, I think they do need to, and I think they will, as well as I do think they do need to step their game up on that end too.
Yeah. 332, I saw your message and thanks for putting it in because I didn't know the mod was catching you, but you make a good point. Let me also say this, you said this earlier too, they said that, you know what, there's way more clothes than there is hairstyles. And God knows that's the truth because them unisex hairstyles, they need to, I mean, we've been waiting on hair to change for, oh, God only knows how long. We've been waiting on hairstyles to change.
Since what's her name came out, remember she had the really nice hair.
Oh yeah,
don't worry, we're gonna add that later.
Yeah, Twitch Pacheco. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They showed us
Nice
all
hair.
those great hairstyles, and we still haven't gotten them yet. So we are definitely looking forward to both hairstyles and definitely, I agree with you, Fist. I think we know it's coming. I just wish that now from here on, that like those nice cool jackets that came out the other day, they need to put out both now. We don't need to have just one. It needs to be from here on out. Both. They can play catch up on the older stuff, but from here on out, as far as I'm concerned, I want to see the
I will agree with you on that one.
Yeah.
From here on out, they should make it a standard.
Yeah, definitely.
Make it an effort.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, buddy.
Cool.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, Seggellion, we're knocking it out here. We're going to jump from Spectrum to Reddit, gang. We're going to go to Reddit, that favorite place of all you all who love
I love Reddit.
Yeah, but you know what? We find good things on Reddit, and this is an interesting one. So, people have been really, and Seggellion, I know you've seen this too, a lot of talk in the industry about new players that are coming in, right? People who maybe didn't look at Star Citizen before, old players who are coming back now. So this kind of caught my attention. This is called I'm Beginning to Believe by, I guess that's XndrMrmn. I'm sorry if I'm slaughtering your name, but anyway, let me read it to everybody. It says, I backed Star Citizen nearly 7 years ago, and I wanted to play XndrMrmn so bad. Here we are in 2022, and I'm still waiting. Over the last 7 years, I've installed, I've uninstalled, I've reinstalled SC a number of times, probably at least once a year, just to see how it's getting on. I must admit, I have been very critical in the past, and I'm still skeptical now. Vaporware, a scam, won't fix the bugs. But here's another $300 ship, though. I ran like poop. It says it ran like poop before Lumberyard, though I'm hearing rumors that they are creating their own engine. Only in the last month have I really sat down with the game and put some hours in. I'm very much enjoying flying my Aegis Titan. I love the simulation aspects of the game. It's simple but stunning, beautiful, and beauty with the soundtrack. I'm starting to see the potential. I have a decent rig to run the game on and play it smoothly. Yet, I guess it says yet to see it in VR for fear of melting my Quest 2. It is a very steep learning curve, and the random crashes are brutal at times. I'm doing my best to report them. I see that Chris and his team are trying to create, and I actually now want to see this game to succeed. And I don't think I'll be uninstalling it again. I'm staying now. I just need to make some friends. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I'm converted. I wouldn't say I'm fully on board, but I'm here to stay and excited for this game's future. Now, Seggellion, I want to throw this at you because, again, you've been around for a little while, and I know you've seen the trend of, the old days of it's a scam, it'll never come out, blah, 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 blah. And you've also seen over the last year, especially, there's been a shift. We're not seeing the negative articles like we used to. There's not as much hate. There's still a little skepticism, but there's also a lot more people, including many well-known streamers who've been coming on board and speaking very well of where Star Citizen is right now. So give me your thoughts about that in the sense of, the believers and where you think your retrospective of what you've seen happen from the past till now.
I love my perspective in this because this is one of the favorite things of Star Citizen is I feel like I have a perspective where we see the old players and we see the new players. Maybe it's just from Twitch. You see the old players and the new players and how they behave differently and how they have a different narrative. And they feel differently about the project. We're seeing less of the old players because they're the saltiest ones. Those old ones that have these assumptions of what the game was supposed to be and they're not getting what they want and they're salty about it. And then you get the new players who are just experiencing it. And that's the healthiest mindset to have. I'll tell you one thing too, a good barometer, a way to I don't know, gauge this is I haven't seen Heavy Bob in I think a year, right? He hasn't stopped by in about a year.
Now you just put the curse on. Now he's going to show up because you said the name.
You know what? He'll stop by and I'll have nothing but good things to say, and he'll then just go away, right? Yeah. But I think that says a lot about the state of the.
That's true. That's a good observation.
Everything.
Yeah, that's a great observation. Yeah, the haters you don't hear. It's gotten kind of quiet from that side of the fence, right? Yeah.
Very quiet.
And you and I both named the name who we will not name with DS.
I'm sorry.
You already.
I wasn't supposed to do
no,
that.
no, that's okay. No. I'm just saying there was a contingent of folks out there that kind of kept the fires going, and you have heard less and less. But we don't even have to pick on them. I'm just saying in general, even in the industry, there's a lot more. Maybe they are doing something. Maybe there is something to look at over there.
I think it's just a healthier mindset, though. Like, I've always looked at this project because of Chris Roberts and Richard Garriott. These are my childhood heroes, and I will follow them through whatever fires that they direct me through. So, like, I don't care about all the other nonsense. And I think a lot of the newer gamers are subscribed to that same narrative. They don't really care about all the expectations. They're just here to have a good time. And CIG can provide that product now. And they maybe couldn't do that before, but, they have integrity. And maybe they didn't have that before.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I always say this to Seggellion, and I'm going to bring Pops in. Sometimes it's heartbreaking for me because me being an old guy, I'm 50. How old am I? I'm 58. I'll be 59 this year. I remember when gamers used to aspire for like that dream game. We weren't cynical. You know what I mean? We wanted it. When someone said this was good, I understand the dynamics that have made us cynical. You know, there's been a lot of disappointments. There's been scams. There have been all these negative things. But I also still always wanted that game that you mentioned it earlier. You're one of the people who said this. For those people who experienced Star Wars Galaxies and got a chance to play that game,
That was a taste.
it was, but it was an amazing taste. I mean, it was one of it was the game. I played EverQuest. I played Ultima Online. There were certain games that you literally stepped into those worlds. It was a different feeling. It wasn't just playing a game. It was almost like if you've done D&D and you're really into D&D and you kind of step into that world with your friends. That certain games did that for me, and so my hope is that Star Citizen, because I haven't had that feeling since Galaxies, to be honest with you. As deep as I played Eve for freaking 6 or 7 years, but that level of immersion, you know what I mean? I remember playing Star Wars Galaxy, closing my eyes and listening to the freaking wind blow. And I was excited hearing John Williams' music. You know what I mean? Think about that. That's the type of thing that I remember, and I haven't felt that in a very long time. So, this guy says he has some legitimate stuff here. He says 7 years ago I got in and I just wasn't happy. There are some people who just wanted to play it. They see the trailers and and then they get in there and realize, oh man, this thing, they say it's broken. Yeah, it's broken, but it's also alpha. That's what happens when it's an alpha. It's broken, and I understand people maybe not understanding the dynamic of alpha because we've never really had any game company open up a game with this level of access in such a early development state. People are used to kind of early access and beta, but alpha's a whole nother freaking animal, and a lot of people just haven't been ready for that. Let's bring Pops in. I'm gonna stop yapping my head off. Let's bring Pops in. Pops, you there?
Long time no see. How's it going?
Yeah, where you been, man?
Okay. All right. I'm gonna say the features in the game, and I'm gonna compare them to other MMOs. You go in, you go fight something, and you get whatever you get from it. Star Citizen is a different kind of a game for me in two aspects. Gameplay, exploration is going to be my main thing in that. But there's a part to this game that I've never had before, and it's the social aspect. Because I would play a game, me and my son, so on and so forth. I've never met people. I've had the pleasure of meeting, people like Seggellion, Made in Ariana, the Yacht Club. I have never gone out that far in my life. And it's a brand new thing for me, people, Soul Citizens people. And it's entirely new. And this is what the game has brought to me in my life. And I'm very appreciative of it. And that the depth that the gameplay has to it, because it, like Seggellion said earlier about if you and both of y'all said that it, if I need to learn how to do something, I need to go to people. And that's something I've never really had to do before. And that's what it's brought to me in my life.
Yeah. Pops, to your point, one of the things that I think that some players, and I know there's a real struggle here, Chris, to me, and Seggellion, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too. I think Chris is promoting in the development of this game the idea of bringing back players in some way needing other players to help do things. And there's a balance with that, right? Because there are some people who want to come in and do something on their own and they play one-on-one. But I think that the problem that I have, and this is just me personally, y'all, so I'm not throwing any rocks at anybody when I say this, the game is still a MMO. It's a massively multiplayer online game. And most MMOs are at some point designed that there are some things you just can't do by yourself. In the real world, there are some things you just can't do by yourself. You might get lucky. Don't get me wrong. You might go into that dungeon and get lucky enough that by yourself beat that boss. But but you also have to, and that's why games scale up, right? Because some dungeons scale up depending on how many people go into them, blah, 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 blah. But I think that Chris is trying to make sure that, like I've said this before, I know some people may not like this when I say this, I don't think you should be able to buy a javelin. put all AI on the ship and fly Javelin by yourself. I don't think you should be able to do that. I think there's a certain percentage of it, maybe 30%, 40%, but I think that using a blade should serve a purpose. If I'm on Seggellion's Starfarer and we're out doing something, Griff gets killed. Seggellion should be able to say, Griff was also manning my main gun. I can put a blade in there to cover him while he's gone. You know what I'm saying? Or just the fact that he needs that fifth person, or that there are 2 or 3 extra crew members. But I think Chris is trying to promote this idea of us playing together, a world where people come together to do stuff. Now, mind you, again, also there's plenty of roles for that solo player. You got to leave room for that, because this is the way the world is, right? But I just personally think that, and I can understand what you're saying, Pops, there are some games where you can, and in some ways I think Star Citizen is promoting that fact of relationship. You don't have to be in an org, you know what I mean? Because we see people go in the chat and say, hey, I need a gunner. You're not in an org or nothing, but the person says, hey, you need a gunner, I'll come on and be a gunner for you. You know what I mean? As long as you pay me. I think that's the world he's trying to create, not the world that says I can go get on my Idris, put 23 blades in it, and I can fly that sucker around. You know, I just don't see that. So, okay, let me go ahead and move on here, Pops. Thank you, man, for coming in. You shared some good knowledge as always. Let's bring BBG, Big Black Gaming, into the room here. BBG, how are you, man?
Greetings and salutations. Can you all hear me?
Good to hear your voice again. How are you, man?
Oh, every day is a blessing, especially when voices is rocking.
Good. What's your thoughts on this poster here? I'm beginning to believe.
You know, when I saw this, I made a prediction that you would pull it up on Soul Voices. And the reason that I thought it was compelling is because I feel like it's code. Right? When we start to hear this language in the community, the folks that have skirted on the outside of the community and on the outside of the experience, and then in this particular post decide to dive in for a little bit, just give a little bit of concerted effort into diving in. What they're also saying, what I'm hearing them say when they say I'm beginning to believe, is the potential, the fact of Star Citizen and the potential of Star Citizen is becoming undeniable. Not just for the committed adherents who have been around for a while, or for whatever reason really want this thing to succeed, but for the ostensible neutrals.
Okay.
And it's starting to happen both in folks' experience when they decide to come in and just give a little concerted effort. It's happening at the same time we can experience it across YouTube streamers and influencers who are leaning in, and you're starting to see them make mileage and make hay on the fact that this experience is robust and lights fire to the imagination when you go, well, if we already have this in game, and the commitment has been, if we already have X in game, the commitment has been Y, what is Y going to be like? Right? Because I'm already blown away. We say it all the time on the stream that it's almost trite now to say that Star Citizen is a screenshot simulator, right?
Yeah, right.
It's almost trite to say that Star Citizen is a wallpaper generator, right? But now you're starting to get those systems in game. You're starting to get gameplay alongside the emergent gameplay that players have always been able to deliver in the space. And when this Siege of Orison manifests itself correctly, you're going to see even more of those folks who occupy the ostensible neutrals coming on board with this sensibility. So, when I started to see YouTube streamers who were really mainstream and not really focused on Star Citizen dive in and have robust experiences, I've even seen streamers who have had an initial bad experience and then come back a week or two later with a video that says, man, the way this community reached out to me to support the way that to support my play and to help me be better, I want to dive back in and do another video. So all of this is happening at the same time, and so when I saw this, I was like, yeah, this is what we want to talk about on Soul Voices, because people are beginning to believe, that because the reality on the ground in game is becoming more and more undeniable.
I agree with you 100%. I do believe that the tide is turning, right? I mean, it's taken a while, but the acceptance and there's enough evidence there to satisfy maybe not the most severest critic, but the most neutral critic can at the very least feel like, okay, I can, as this person said here, I can see what Chris is trying to do. It was one thing for talk. You know what I mean? We would love to see if we want to do this. Because remember, a lot of our presentations in the earlier days from CitizenCon was about what we want to do. And those have shifted now to what we are doing. And that is definitely made a turn for a lot of people. There's something tangible that people can look at and see in the game and say, oh, wow, I get where this is going. Where before, I hate to say it, but I think there was a little bit of lack of vision amongst gamers. But again, I think there's reasons why gamers felt that way too. So,
right, I think that's right, and I think there's some behavioral economics in it too, right? Mm-hmm. It's like if there's a narrative out there that is infused with the idea of scam, then you don't want to be a sucker.
Yeah,
right.
Right.
You don't want to be a sucker. You're going to watch and observe, particularly if you're a neutral. But now the narrative is, oh, I don't want to be left out.
Yeah.
I'm seeing all of these incredible experiences online, and people are talking, and ostensible neutral content producers are having these incredible experiences. Now I don't want to be left out.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's shifting to that as well. So it's going to be. I think, CIG can't make no big mistakes, Griff.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They can't make no big mistakes.
Right. No, absolutely.
But if they continue the way they've been going.
Mm-hmm.
Then I think you're right that this is a sea change, and we will have been here to be able to look back and say, remember that moment.
Yeah.
Right. Because we're in it.
Good point.
Yeah.
All right, BBG. Thank you very much, man.
All right, y'all. Talk to you soon.
All righty. Let me go back to something Red Baron said. Red Baron says, I'm also of the opinion that it's not an MMO yet. And you're absolutely right. It's not there yet. But we do know that is what it is intended to be. So I don't want people to think that our 50 player count entitles this game to big MMO. Again, MMO is massively, and even though, as someone mentioned here, we do have 4 million accounts, we broke the 4 million mark. That's just accounts, obviously. We don't have the player base there yet. Many of those accounts, as you guys know, are multiple accounts that people have, but it is growing. And we, as you guys know, even in PTU right now, right, Seggellion, they've been testing. The numbers have been bumped up to as high as 120 now. So CIG is evidently gearing up. We may not get it in the next patch, but we know that they are gearing up because we know Pyro's coming. And they've hinted to the fact that they would like to see those numbers increase, obviously, because we're going to go into a space that's 2.5 times bigger what we already have, and it will be very empty with only 50 people. So let's cheer on CIG as they start to push those numbers up. And you guys know Chris has always said that he would love to see thousands of people playing in the game. So let's hope that we do move there. I got one more person to bring in, and we're going to get our final piece in, and that's going to be J2. Let's bring him
I do want to
down.
say about the 100 people server. No, it's very important to me. I remember in 2.6 what it felt like to have like 15 people servers, really small servers.
Yeah.
Nobody used the chat system at all. Nobody interacted with one another.
Yeah.
It was pretty dead. And then I vividly remember when that changed, and all of a sudden, 50 people and chat was working. People were using it. People were interacting with one another. And then this week, got 100 people servers, and I experienced something I'll never forget in my life. Is the next step up now, and it really gave me a feeling of what Star Citizen is going to be. With 100 people in a server, the chat was out of control. Like I couldn't even follow it. There's people everywhere. There were so many people. And I mean, I was just I was on Twitch. People were finding me on Twitch, and then they were finding me in the server. And that's never happened to me before. I know that happens to Burks, but that doesn't happen to me. So I'm like, I was so excited by Element. What a weird experience. But I'm sorry to deviate. J2,
no, it's not
continue.
a deviate. It's not a deviation.
No, not at all, man. That was fun. Stories are what we're here for. But now I totally lost my train of thought again.
Oh, that's okay.
So beginning to believe it is, it's a good thing overall, and it's a sentiment that I feel like is being echoed, in a lot of places in the community. There are definitely, what I feel like it is there are player side things, things that we see mainly from the Montreal team. Those guys are just knocking it out of the park lately. As far as the complaints go, we have less to complain about because they're telling us less. You know, they kind of, when they did that thing cutting off the
With the map.
roadmap
It sure did.
you
cut out
know,
a lot.
one thing out, you know, it felt like that was like a that was a Knight Rider move, that was a synthwave move. This thread is getting too crazy, so you know, closing the thread. You know, we're just not going to have a conversation on that topic any longer because we don't like where it goes. So you know, like there's no argument to be had. They said like we're just not going to have that conversation.
Yeah.
So like that in and of itself kind of annoys me. I don't feel like that's the right way to go.
Well, let me ask you this though. But does it make a balance? See, here's the deal. I didn't like the fact that they cut it off. You know why? Because I could handle it when the map changed. It didn't bother me when stuff changed. There are some people who raged when the freaking Taurus got pushed back, when Salvage got canceled. They went nuts. I didn't go nuts. I got disappointed. I look forward to say, when is it going to pop back up again? Because I understood that to put it out there and it don't work, don't make no sense. If the mechanic's not in the game, it doesn't make sense. But people, they took it as Bible. If they said that Salvage is going to come out in freaking June and it didn't come out, even though there's nothing to salvage, they still got bent out of shape. So guess what? You remove that. And as you mentioned, the impression is that we're now getting more than we're not getting. That's what has happened. It's been a psychological shift. It's not about the content. It's the psychological shift that took place with some players who just basically, I hate to say it, there was an attitude of entitlement. Because if it was written down, it was supposed to come out. And if it didn't, CIG was lying. Those are the terms people were using. They're lying to us. You know, what benefit do they get for lying and putting heat on themselves for lying? That's I'm not going to say dumb, but it just didn't make sense. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm just saying to me, that was more of a psychological thing. You may be able to handle it, J2. I'm able to but there are a whole lot of people out there, dude, that just couldn't handle it. They stirred the pot more than anybody did. And there's a community of people stirring the pot.
You're not wrong in what you're saying, but I feel like it's sort of an unfair argument. I mean, most of the community, the way I felt it is, you know, was disappointed when Salvage is delayed once. You know, Salvage is delayed twice, a little more disappointment. Salvage is delayed 8 times.
Yeah.
Now it starts to feel like CIG's being a little disingenuous about their promises.
J2. You talk to developers who will tell you that they'll work on something for 2 or 3 years, get to a certain point, and they have to scrap the whole thing and start over again. That happens in development all the time. There's nothing unusual. So why? But the people don't. The community doesn't. They don't give. They'll say the exact same thing you said. This is the 4th time Salvage has been pushed out. That's the exact words they said. 4th time Salvage has been pushed back. How come the Taurus is taking so long? They put the other 3 constellations out. How come we don't have the Taurus? So what? They got the Taurus. Have you seen anything change in the game because they got the Taurus? No. No.
It's a good ship, though.
Yeah, it's a great ship. So I get the people. Listen, from a consumer standpoint, J2, I get people who want it because, not to be funny, some people pay for ships that came out 8 years ago, 7 years ago.
Yep.
They don't have it in their hand. From a consumer standpoint, why are you putting out this ship, you know, that you just talked about 2 years ago, and then that freaking ship that we still have a concept drawing on, we don't have it yet, right? So I get that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that the arguments aren't valid. What I am saying is that the pressure came off when they stopped projecting like that. Because you were around back when Chris said that when 3.0 came out, or 4.0, the Orion and the Endeavor would be out. You were around back then.
Yes,
now imagine if that was still out. Imagine if that was still out there now. What do you think people would be saying when 4.0 hits? They'll be crying. Chris told us back in 2016 that the Endeavor and the Orion would be out. And I remember that. But I ain't mad. I'm not. If I had an Endeavor right now, what would I freaking do with it?
No, there'd be nothing to do with there. And you're right. On each one of these, you know, calling out about the Taurus. You know, that it doesn't necessarily add anything to the game. But at the same time, it was delayed repeatedly to ships that had greater functionality. It wasn't delayed because of the other ships, but it was the last to be implemented than the rest of the Cutlass series, which had greater functionality in it. And every time it was delayed, there was rarely a reason given, and if there was a reason given, it was a very superficial one that didn't make a whole lot of sense. The explanations, things, I understand that things happen in development, but when they happen at CIG, they're rarely explained adequately.
I agree 100%.
In my opinion.
No, I agree 100%. I think that there's some, I don't want to say assumptions, J2. I think that
exactly.
CIG needs to say, they need to say, and I think that I agree. I think that players can digest. I know they don't have time to explain every facet, but I do think, especially when you see that that's the area where you see people kind of getting thrown about, like if a mechanic didn't come in or a ship didn't come in, it would have been good. Like, remember when they were doing that thing where they said, this is what we wanted to do, this is what happened, this is what we need to do better? I wish that they had did that. Like said, hey, we can't do salvage right now because salvage is dependent upon, we have to get meshing in place because we got to be able to track all the particles. If we can't track the particles, salvage can't be implemented. Therefore, we're not putting this. I wish that would have been, instead of people maybe having to talk to people who are in development to find out why something might happen, because they do have that account. I think you're right. That it's not transparency, but it's that extra mile.
Yes, it's the
explaining.
Yeah, because they're absolutely transparent. I cannot argue CIG's level of transparent. I argue the type of transparency that they do.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
They have, they're telling us what they're doing day to day, week to week, even month to month. But this is a long-term project, and I bought into the original vision. And sometimes it seems like the direction that they're taking things is not in line with the vision that I brought into. So I want to know what their plans look like, what steps they're taking. Like, okay, they're going to do this and then go to this and then they're going to go to this. If things change along that path, fine. But tell me that you have a plan to get me to the end goal, which should hopefully still resemble the thing that I originally bought into. That's the thing. I just want to be reassured that at the end of this crazy ride, I'm going to have something vaguely resembling what I thought it was going to be.
That makes sense. That makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. Not just that it changed, but helping with why it changed. And I think that they underestimate, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like sometimes they underestimate the community, that if they gave those explanations, I've been around long enough that I'm kind of, 50-50 on it, but I agree with you 100%. I think there are a group of folks out there that would feel way more cooler and comfortable if they gave those explanations. I know it may take a little bit of extra work and time to do it, but the payoff for it to me would be a good payoff, But I don't know, Seggellion, what do you think? Are you pretty much, when it comes to them sharing information, have you felt they've been pretty good on it, hit or miss on it?
Well, we have to consider the fact that we have to contextualize everything, right? First off, 2012, they did this Kickstarter. They got way more success than they ever planned. Like, this is a Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook kind of explosion in technology we're experiencing. So they started up as a startup. Sure, they didn't know how to manage their community. Okay, who would possibly know how to do that in the first year? To do something like that, that's insane. And I feel like just now in the past, like maybe year, it feels like they're getting their feet on the ground a little bit. Their staff is building up their developing processes and workflows. Like, they're migrating from the startup into like a real corporation. And I mean, I've experienced that in my full-time job as well, where it was like a stupid, crazy tech startup like Facebook, and then growing up basically, and they're learning through that. And I don't think they've made any mistakes, really. I mean, well, they've made mistakes, but they've improved from those mistakes, so they're not really mistakes. That's what I think.
But you know what? Every company makes mistakes. I'm not trying to white knight them. I'm saying I have owned businesses, and Jesus Christ, building a company, there is no getting every decision right. But I do. They're in a weird spot, J2, and I mean, I agree with you. That transparency agreement, you know what I mean, puts them in a weird spot, because there's one side of development that is always in fluctuation that could change. I mean, you literally, like, remember when they did the what did they call it before? SOX? What was it called? SCL. Yeah, remember that? Remember they ended up having to toss that. They didn't toss it, but they had to change it so that it became this new streaming thing that they're doing now. It had to be modified, and we were all swearing by SOX forever. But then they had to shift it because it didn't do, there was an aspect of it that they said it didn't do, and they had to do something else. And so
I think that might have been
entity streaming. It had to go to entity graph. Right. Thank you. It shifted.
Entity graph got shifted to item cache or something like that.
It was cache going from iCache to entity. That's what it was. Yes.
iCache to entity graph.
That's what it was. That's what it was. And I'm saying
Yeah,
that's the
because
weird.
I think it was iCache didn't scale with
Exactly. And we thought that it
the
did.
object container streaming or something like
right.
that.
And we thought that it did, is my point. You know what I'm saying? And so, you know, they could kind of put that out. And we all, not to be funny, but I think many of us, including myself, thought iCache was going to be the Bible. You know what I mean? Only to find out that when they got there, it didn't do, well, yeah, it didn't do what they had hoped it would do. So they had to modify again. So it puts them in this weird spot, right? If they say something.
And that one, that one they actually owned. They told us about that. They told us what happened.
Yes, they did.
I think they told us a little, like, I think they could have told us sooner.
But
like
once they got it done,
yes, they didn't tell us about it until they already had a solution for it. And the solution was pretty much in place by that point.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can understand, you know, okay, you're not going to talk about a problem until you have a solution. All right. I can respect that standpoint. You know, but at the same time, like, to bring up salvage again, or even just the entity graph and the iCache. You know, they're inventing technologies to build this game. They're trying to do groundbreaking stuff. I understand that there are going to be stumbling blocks along the way. I understand that they're going to hit walls in some aspects. I just would like to. I respect more when people sort of, you know, when people own their mistakes. When you know, when they stand up and say, yes, you know, this was the problem. You know, we hit a wall on this respect. We're pivoting to this until we can solve this. You know, something like that. I feel like the community could handle that and understand it and even be respectful of it. You know, there's and I think
from a perspective of a player perspective and a consumer perspective, right? I think that's a good way of accountability. You know, as gamers, we have to be both mature, and they have to be mature enough to be able to be honest enough, not indirect enough with us. I think that no matter what, J2, there are going to be some people that no matter what they tell them, they're not going to be happy. But I also believe that what you said, if they did more of what you're talking about, there would be more people that would be happier, you know, because there is a certain haze that sometimes exists around certain aspects of the development. And we won't get into Squadron 42 because that's a whole separate thing. But with Star Citizen,
go there.
Yeah, but with Star Citizen, we do want to know a little bit. So
they've painted themselves into a corner with the way they've chosen to do things, and there's a lot of pros and cons to the way they've gone with this development. You know, their transparency is wonderful, but as we say, you know, as we see, they've painted themselves into the corner about what they're going to release, what they're going to talk about. You know, they still want to keep some stuff under wraps, but they got to develop it, and you know, they're doing this and they're doing that, and you know, managing all that communication is a very difficult prospect. So I can understand, you know, that that not everything's going to get right, but you know, someone asked me a while back if I thought that a producer should be brought in to sort of manage it, and I absolutely don't think that, because Chris Roberts' dream is what I bought into, and ultimately that's what I want to see. I just wish he could get there a little more efficiently than he's currently doing. But at the same time, you know, you need a certain you need a disciplinarian in there to keep you from getting out of sorts, you know, especially when you're managing a project this large. You need someone that's going to be able to keep you on track. And as the community, being that there's a lack of a producer to do that, it's our job. The onus falls to us to call them on their crap when they try to pull it and say, look, you know, this is what you're supposed to be doing. Stay on track. Don't get sidetracked. You know, don't let feature creep run in. You know, get these features done. Bang this stuff out. You know, we have to be the ones to keep them on that, because you know, according to Sandy,
according to Sandy, there's been no feature creep since 2015.
I believe that.
I know.
That's what she said. Yes, that's what she said. I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you. That's what she said. So I know people always associate stuff to feature creep, but I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not so sure there's been that much feature creep as people talk. I don't think there's been that much.
I say that as a software developer. I believe
mostly agree with that.
There might have been some. Don't get me wrong. Chris might have expanded a few things, you know, because it was cooler. You know what I mean? Like, for example, when we thought that we couldn't land on planets, then we found out we could. You know what I mean? So there are some aspects of things that did grow into it.
That was part of the 2015 thing. That was when they decided to go with the procedural planets, and everything got, you know, much
Shifted
bigger and more
Yep.
in depth.
Yep.
You know, there are I feel like there are certain systems in the game where they've taken fidelity to a new level.
But that's Chris
and
Robert.
maybe we didn't need to go quite that far. But as far as the overall features and systems, no, I agree with the fact that there hasn't really been any feature creep. That was just an easy example to throw in there.
I got you. Okay, we got to get going to our final piece here. Thank you, J2. Always good stimulated conversation. J2 is always my point counterpoint guy, so he's always he always brings the other side, which is always good. Okay, we're going to jump on this last piece, you all. We are going to hit our industry section. We only had one from Reddit this week. We're going to jump into this next segment, which is what is this next one? This next segment is what did I call it? I forget what I called it. It's what's it called? I forget. Oh, it's going to be talking about the latest. Some of you may have seen it. There's been a new update to No Man's Sky, and it's called Endurance. In fact, Hello Games is doing a big promotion right now. If you watch streamers who are streaming No Man's Sky, you get a bunch of free stuff. All you gotta do is just leave your Twitch on and all this stuff gets loaded into you. Seggellion hasn't seen it yet, which I'm excited about.
Seen it. Don't spoil it.
Excited about it because he hasn't seen it, but I want to get his, obviously we'll get his reaction and we'll get you guys' reaction too. So let's take a quick look at the video and then we're gonna go ahead and jump into it.
This is No Man's Sky, the Endurance
I just watched an Eve video too a couple days ago for the first time, so
a complete overhaul of freighters and fleets. Command an armada of frigates from a new bridge. With instant access to warping and teleportation. Your crew live and work aboard your home in the stars. Spacewalk on exterior walkways provides unprecedented flexibility. Enjoy beautiful new space vistas from portholes and windows. Build vast freighter bases to manufacture goods, grow food, and aid exploration. Asteroids have become more varied and far greater in number. Build your fleet and explore the universe as never before. Our journey continues.
Okay, let's go back to that real quick. Seggellion, I know you haven't seen it. Have you played No Man's Sky?
I have, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
All right. When did you first jump in? Do you remember when it was?
Like 6 months ago ish.
Oh, okay.
Pretty new.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. You know the history of it, and for those of you who are in chat, those of you who may remember that No Man's Sky was first announced publicly in 2013 at E3. They ended up getting a deal. Their presentation was so impressive that Sony decided to offer them a decent amount of money to do the distribution for the game. It was scheduled to launch in 2016, but as you probably already know, it launched with a lot of its features not in the game. Players were extremely disappointed. I think this was one of the most disappointing launchings for a game ever. Got really volatile. People were sending death threats and wanting to find the president of the company, Sean Murray. I mean, it was really nasty. But then Hello Games, which was a fairly small company. When I say fairly small, I'm saying in comparison to AAA studios, but they're an independent company. They went to work and got quiet. They literally went under the radar. Nobody heard from them. Nobody heard from Sean Murray. And then within a year, they started putting out patches. And they started putting out patches that were pretty amazing. And they now have finally reaching the point where the game actually reflects the vision of what Sean Murray expressed back at E3 in 2013. Now, Seggellion, you may not know this. They started working on this game back in 2011. It is now 11 years later, and they're just now reaching the vision that they talked about. So I want to talk about that from the perspective of when we talk about Star Citizen, because we're almost within the same time frame of 2012 and where Star Citizen. Now, obviously, two different games. I think in No Man's Sky, you can have 4 people that are playing together. The game is designed a lot differently. The levels of it, even though it has a very unique style of animation and graphics, it obviously does not have the deeper stuff of what we see in Star Citizen. But it is has grown into a game that people really, really like. People who got it back in the day that walked away from it have come back. It's also garnered, as you mentioned, new players like yourself. And this new patch. And the cool thing about this, Seggellion, every patch they put out, no charge. None whatsoever. You bought the game once, whether you bought it back in 2016 or now, it still goes on sale, and people are still getting more and more into this game. So give me your thoughts about the game, and then, of course, what you saw here for the new patch, the new update.
Yeah, from my experience in No Man's Sky, I comfortably say that No Man's Sky is a game, and I don't feel comfortable saying that about Star Citizen. Star Citizen's like a virtual experience. Like, No Man's Sky holds your hand, and it gives you all the things you need to kill and hunt to get your rewards, your dopamine. Star Citizen doesn't do that. You have to do that yourself, and that's what I like about it. Star Citizen is like Ultima Online, you know. It's the sandbox, and I don't really think No Man's Sky is like that. When I played it, my hand was held the entire time, and I didn't really give a crap. I'm like, I just want to go fly. I want to do orbital mechanics. Can I go do that? No, you can't. Oh, damn. You gotta follow the roller coaster ride, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's something for some people. People who want to play games, play No Man's Sky. But if you want to substitute your real life with a virtual life, play Star Citizen.
Yep, definitely. What do you think about this as far as the timeline, though? Because you know that there was a huge controversy when it came out. You know, like in 2016, it was a flop, basically. But they, you know, a lot of companies, when they put out a flop, that's it. That's where the buck stops. You know what I mean? The money stops coming in. They leave the game in the state that it's in. But they've kind of stuck to the thing and kept working on it. Any thoughts about that? Because it definitely isn't the game that came out back then. It's totally different than what it was in 2016.
I almost want to say that this is an argument of server technology and interfacing with the game client, and then the intricacies of the engine itself. So Cry versus Frostbite. One is an EA exclusive technology, whereas Cry came from Cry, different drama. So I think there's some complexity there that I don't understand, and I think that's really the cause of the timelines. Now, listen, I know that Chris Roberts and feature creep is one thing, but that's what makes the experience unique. And No Man's Sky is just a game.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We got a couple people waiting down here. Let's bring some folks in. We got Dark Knight 75 who's dropping in. DK, how are you?
Okay, I'm all right.
Good. I know you were a No Man's Sky player. You've played Elite and you've played Star Citizen, and so you space genre. You're good for space genre.
Big time. No Man's Sky was the first space that I got into once, when the space genre came back.
Okay.
You know, I played around with E, played around with X4. And they didn't really, tickle that fancy. But when No Man's Sky came out, it was the first one that said, yeah, I want to go in.
Did you ever play Kerbal Space Program?
No, I had never gotten a Kerbal yet. Still probably will try to get in there at some point in time. I've heard some really, really good things about it. But I got into No Man's Sky during the dark period when that first patch was released next. And that's when I jumped in. And it was also the same year that they put it onto Xbox. So I didn't have a PS2 or a PS3 at the time, or as a PS4. I don't know. I didn't have one. I was on Xbox. So when it dropped on Xbox, that was the day I got it, and that was the first patch that they put out after the dark period. I would push back and say that they've pretty much got to their level of where they said they wanted to be around the Frontier patch, where they had just about a lot of the things in that they had started that they had earlier talked about, but now they are going further and beyond. In fact, Kai mentioned the same thing. They've just pushed now further ahead than where they wanted to be, adding more features and things like that. It really is, Seggellion, it really is a sandbox. There are parts of the game that will hold your hand and throughout some of the missions and some of the quests, but you don't even have to touch those. You can leave them completely alone and do your own thing, and just go out and explore. Now, there's a lot of, it's not a simulation, and a lot of people are when they get into it, it's not Elite Dangerous, it's not a simulation. It's it's cartoony and this and that. That was the whole point. They never went to go into the simulated route. They wanted a fictional world that you could go and just have a good time in. I've heard some, recently somebody, other NMS players, we're an older crowd, and it's Minecraft for us old folks that want to play space games.
Now,
It's kind of
let me say this.
Kind of a genre.
Let me say this, DK. When we got in it about a year ago, remember a bunch of us got in, Gomob, you and you were kind of walking us through it. I had gotten into this. I wait when this came out. I didn't buy it I didn't pre-buy it. I bought it afterward, and I tried to play it. It was okay. I never, and this, I already told you, I was never a fan of the animation stuff. I didn't like the look of it. I was so hooked on the Star Citizen immersion. And so I walked away from it after about a year. When you guys talked about it a year ago, and after Frontier and everything, you talked about how good it was. I enjoyed it, but here was the funny part about it. I couldn't enjoy it when I was by myself. I did enjoy it when we played it together. That was when I actually enjoyed it. I also found
that's a difference.
I got lost in it too. It was a little too big, and I hate to say that. I think it's because my brain was still on how the game was when it first came out. You know what I mean? And then later, with all the other stuff that came up, I was somewhere lost in between what the game had become versus what it was in the beginning. But when all of us were hanging out together and we were building there, I was enjoying that part of it, the survival aspect and building. And like you said, it wasn't any assigned missions or anything. We were just doing our own thing, Yeah. But I also felt kind of lost because without you guys being there who had played the game, I don't know, I felt kind of funny. I got in last night and played for a little bit and had a good time doing it. But like Seggellion said at that beginning, they're kind of walking you through stuff to get you reacclimated to what to do and whatnot, which is okay.
Especially if you start as a new character, new save.
Yeah.
Yes, it will walk you through to get you to a point where you can start going on your own. Yeah. I would like to say that No Man's Sky, I think there's a subsection or a section of gamers that have played MMOs primarily, and they want No Man's Sky to be an MMO game. It was never intended to be an MMO game,
right?
And it was never intended. I read somewhere people were talking about, oh, where's the PvP? It was never intended to have PvP.
Right.
The game was never intended to be that way. They added in this multiplayer aspect to please more of a multiplayer crowd. So they added in a few things like being able to build together and things like that.
Right.
But the story of the game is you are a solitude single individual exploring on your own. That was the beginning of it, that it was you are on your own,
trying to figure out all these things and so on and so forth. Figure things out.
Right. There's a storyline that you can follow if you want to. The universe and all of the 252 galaxies that there are, you don't have to go find 252 galaxies. That's not the point of the game. You don't have to go out and I mean, people were like, I'm never going to find 400 billion stars. Who said you have to?
Right. It's just there. It's just there.
It's there for you to get lost in, go find a system that you can call your own, make it your home. And that's your system. It is yours. Everything in it is yours.
Right.
It is a game for those that just want to if I want to get away from just reality, I don't want to get into my 737 and fly real world routes from San Diego to Chicago. I don't want to get into Star Citizen and go mining and in the Air and Halo belt and have to go through all the process of getting things set up. I can turn on No Man's Sky, do some stuff within 5 seconds of loading in the game and pick up where I left off on whatever it was I was doing, whether it's going and salvaging a derelict freighter or, doing a little bit of pirating and, in a system and lose, reputation with this one, group, or I can build, and I'll tell you what, this new update is killing it. I'm loving it. But it's a game for me to get away from.
You have played the new update? You have played the new update?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. I've been in there for like the last 2 days.
Okay.
But if for players that want to get away from all of the simulation stuff and just go in and play a game
Yeah.
and have fun and do your own thing and maybe meet up with other people to do stuff, you can do that. You know, that's what this game is for.
I'm a builder survival person. So like, you know, I'm a 7 Days to Die person. And that's the aspect of the game that I enjoy doing. I haven't really done a lot of the trade aspects and everything else, but I do enjoy the aspect of, you know, that survival and building out
I like
stuff,
decorating,
which is nice, right? That's the stuff I like doing. So I'm curious. We're gonna have to get together and talk later because you got to get me educated, okay? Because I've got to learn some more. Thanks, DK. I want to get Pops in because we need to go ahead and wrap up. Thanks, buddy.
Yep.
All right.
I mean, eventually we'll have decorating, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
I can't wait. Oh God, you know I can't wait. I just like my clothing. I'll be freaking sticking in my house painting all the time. Pops,
I just want that Star Wars Galaxies experience, man.
oh, don't even go there. Don't go there,
Right?
Seggellion. Don't go there. Oh, I wasted so much time building in my house. Oh, I had stuff on the walls everywhere. Pops, how you doing, buddy? Talk to me. What's what you think about what you saw here with the new update for Endurance?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't played that.
Okay.
I haven't. I played No Man's Sky with the fellas, with the group and everything. I got lost in the game. I got to a certain point to where I didn't know what to do, and I couldn't figure it out. And I agree with Seggellion. It's that questing kind of a thing. Go find this, bring that back. You can't find it, you get stuck. So what I wound up doing is, like you said, I just went into base build. I forgot everything else, and then I just got my little pipes and things running into the water, up, down, and every which direction. I'm just trying to figure out what I can do as far as that.
So let me ask you this: when you saw this new patch update, I mean, does this make you curious to go back, or are you pretty much like, it looks nice, but I don't know if I want to go back in?
Nah.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
No,
hey, keep it real. Keep it real. That's fine.
Yeah, it's going to be that. To me, it's going to be that same old questing
side
type
of it.
Yeah, and see, Star Citizen to me, it doesn't. I mean, okay, you can go do bounty hunting, but that's not questing.
Yeah,
I mean, you go, you fight something. You either win or you lose. You get your reputation up, but it's not questing.
Yeah.
So I can go do that. Then, like we said before, I can go cook on someone's ship later on, or go refuel, things like that. Go from A to B to C to D is very constraining to me, and it can be very frustrating. I'm kind of tired of those.
I feel the same way.
It is a different exposure. It is, even though it's in the space genre, right, Pops? It is definitely a different game. Like Seggellion said, it's not the whole getting to the immersion and reality and simulator type of thing. But again, it is within that space genre. And as DK said, it is like that alternative to something different, right? If you don't want to get that deep, you want to go back, relax, single player, you can go in and play it. Or if you want to get together with some friends, then that's cool. My big focus here was showing what happens when a company decides to stick to it. You know what I mean? Because they could have done like a lot of other companies. They could have got their money and ran and said, that's it. But they have stuck to it, and it's paid off for them now, where the game is respected now. You're not hearing anybody throwing any shade toward Hello Games anymore. Just like Seggellion was saying the same thing about with Star Citizen. You're not hearing all of the scam hate stuff as much anymore nowadays because there's evidence of what's being done. Okay.
Yeah,
all right, Pops. I'm gonna bring in Kai's in because I know he's a guy who's gonna give us something, and then we're gonna close it on out for the day. Kai, I'm squeezing you in, brother, at the last minute. I told Seggellion I'm gonna let him go home, so he's got to make his pizzas. How you doing, man?
Hello. Sorry,
that's okay.
Super brief. Can you hear me? Okay, by the way.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. So I think No Man's Sky, or No Mansky as I call it, is a masterful game. I absolutely love it. I think I'm glad that it's doing so well. I love the idea of any games that are traditionally thought of in the space game genre as doing well. I think a rising tide raises all boats. I think that's good for Star Citizen. It's good for gamers. It's good for everything. I do think it's interesting when you look at the time frame involved, the fact that these are both projects that, have been kicking around in one form or another for a decade. And it does go to show that there are some things with quality that, take time and you have to have some patience over. I think a little bit comparison, it does a disservice to both games if you compare them too closely to each other, though, because you're comparing apples and Volkswagens. No Man's Sky is a far better game than Star Citizen will ever be for players who want that experience. Star Citizen undoubtedly, I think, will be a much better game than No Man's Sky will ever be for people who want that experience. If you are a soccer fan and you go to a baseball game, you're going to have a bad time. Now, there are some players who would like both, who would like both experiences, but No Man's Sky isn't really even a space game, I think. To me, it is a relaxing, chill, let's be honest, 99% single player, 1% co-op.
Yeah.
Exploration, planetary exploration, survival, and base building experience. And it is so good at delivering that experience.
That's the part I enjoy.
Whereas Star Citizen is a galaxy sim, hardcore flight sim, MMO, true MMO, that's an experience that's meant to be, 50 to hundreds, eventually people all in one world doing things together. And when you bring in that multiplayer, I mean, there's no computer simulation ever that we have with current technology that can rival the true experience of what other players do. So it's just so much more. And I mean, a lot of the tech behind Star Citizen comes down to that, what they're trying to do with server technology for all of the players. So, if you want to just explore unlimited planets, Star Citizen kind of, it's got a limited number of planets that are so much more in depth, whatever. But if you just want to turn your brain off and spend the next 3 hours hopping planet to planet to planet, here's 10 different water worlds, and here's this and here's that, go enjoy No Man's Sky. If you want a good flight model, if you want realistic space, if you want, eventually things like orbital mechanics and more scientifically accurate, systems, well, then that's what you got Star Citizen for, and doing things with a large group of people.
Right. Okay.
So I think they're both fantastic, and I love them both. And that's a thing that I very much love about the Soul Citizens show, is that there's so many content creators that can get real nasty about things that aren't in their tribe, so to speak. And you guys are always very, very classy and supportive of the whole thing, and say like, oh, this is cool. Might not be my thing, but it's somebody else's thing.
Okay. Well, that's what we try to do. Yeah, we try to do. Thank you, Kai. Yeah, we try to kind of keep people aware of not just what's going on in the Star Citizen community, but also gaming and stuff that's out there for people to give consideration to, because we all know we love Star Citizen.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, awesome sauce. Listen, thank you guys. You guys have given us so much cool stuff today, and Seggellion has been great as always. Listen, we got to figure out a way to get Seggellion to be able to ship pizzas around the world so that we can all be eating his pizza while we are watching him on stream. I think somebody mentioned earlier about the caramelized cheese. You're gonna have to. I can't watch that anymore because it's gonna mess me up. But let me jump into this real quick here. Seggellion, first of all, thank you for being here. Thanks for sharing your thoughts and stuff. As always, we always love having you on board. Let me give you guys real quick. Tomorrow we're going to be doing at 8:00 p.m. Eastern time our Shipyard show. We're going to be covering Asperia, Gatak, Great Cat, and Kruger. So if you guys are into those alien ships, if you're into those collectible ships, if you're into mining, if you're into loving to fly the P-72 and the P-52, you don't want to miss tomorrow's show. We're going to be covering Shipyard. And also don't forget, we also will have our show on Thursday for Soul Talk, where Fast Card is the host and other folks come on board for our roundtable conversation about what's going on in the Star Citizen community. Seggellion, again, thank you guys so much. To all the people who dropped in tonight, Pops in Space, J2, Fist to Face, Dark Knight, Kai, Big Black Gaming. Thank all of you all for dropping in. And Seggellion, tell people where they can find you. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitch, Gellion's Twitch channel. That's where I'm at. I stream Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Ultima Online, I stream on Mondays. You're always welcome to join me in UO someday, Griff, and anybody else out there. And Star Citizen Tuesday through Friday. So, yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for being here. As always, we tell you guys, as always, take care of yourselves. Stay safe out there. Peace, love, and soul from the Soul Citizens. We'll see you soon. Take it easy. Bye.